All right, so now that we've talked about naming ionic compounds, naming covalent compounds, naming acids, which is a lot because there's three separate systems, let's kind of put this all together as just one big flow chart so we know which system to use. Because after all, as you go through and have to name compounds, it's not going to tell you this is an ionic compound, this is an acid, this is a covalent compound. So it's important to be able to recognize what type of compound you're looking at right away, and then you can go through and name it. And so the big thing is you ask yourself the question, what is the first element? And so that's the first big idea. Now, after that, you basically have three options. It could be a metal, it could be a nonmetal, or the last option, it could be hydrogen. So those are the three possible options for the first element. So let's just start off kind of like we did with our notes. We'll start off with the metal side. And so here, as we get closer to naming our metal substances, basically, when it comes to naming it, that means that this is an ionic substance. And so that tells us we need to use our ionic naming rules. So remember, for our ionic substance, it goes name the cation, name the anion, and remember, for naming the anion, the last bit is the ending changes to "ide." Now remember here, for the ending changes to "ide," let's just kind of make a note if you want. Excludes polyatomic ions. So remember, polyatomic ions, we don't do anything special. We leave those exactly the way they are. All right, now let's talk about our nonmetals. So here, if it's a nonmetal, remember that means that this is a covalent compound. And so for our covalent compounds, the big idea is we use our prefixes. And remember, for our prefixes, and we can even just make the list here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And so 1 is mono. And remember, second element only. And then 2 is di. 3 is tri. 4 is tetra. 5 is penta. 6 is hexa. 7 is hepta. 8 octa. 9 nona. And 10 deca. All right. And so for this, remember, we use the prefixes. We just listed them. And then here, remember, the ending of second element becomes "ide." All right, and then our last set was if it starts off with hydrogen. Remember, if it starts with hydrogen, that means that this is an acid. Now, for our acids, remember, we had two main types. We had kind of the binary or the ternary. And so the big question after this is, does it contain oxygen? Now, really what that's saying is, does it contain like a majority of our polyatomic ions? And so let's just say no. That means that it's a pretty basic thing. It's hydro something ic acid. And if it's yes, it does contain oxygen. Ooh. Remember, that means it's a polyatomic ion. And so then it's here, and we can even label this anion and anion. And then remember, our ending changes. So we'll kind of put this here as our ending, and then acid. Now remember, for the endings, the 8 endings become ix, and the ite endings become oses. All right, so hopefully this is kind of a quick little summary chart that you guys can use to help you name. Now with this summary chart, feel free to add in other notes if you wanted to help kind of make your life easier in terms of naming. You can put some examples of each underneath, but this is a great kind of reference chart to help you guys out. All right, that's it for this video.